Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a bit of a problem here with the pump shed. After about a year of use, the pressure vessel on our pump fills with water. It's not a bladdered pressure vessel, it's just a big vessel filled with air, and as the water is pumped in, it pressurizes the air, and that's what gives us sort of a... Hello bud. That's what gives us our pressure in the high pressure lines around the house. Now that is kind of important because it feeds the granny flat, so we need to keep that running. It also feeds the header tanks up in the main house. The entire main house, it's a 70s place, that's all low pressure, so it just feeds header tanks, and then we gravity feed everything in the house. And it feeds the high pressure lines over to the yards, which is also kind of important for the stock and animals and things. So what happens is what you just heard, where the pump is just constantly cycling to keep pressure in the system, because the pressure vessel's not doing anything. It's basically full of water now. There's nothing to compress, and so that's really bad for the pump. To get that pump cycling then, all I did was turn on one of the high pressure taps just to a trickle. So it's absolutely doing nothing. I would say this tank is completely full of water at this point. I believe that the water actually absorbs the air over time and then just carries it out of the tank. So eventually the water level just comes right up to the top. So about once a year I drain it out, and that time is now. So yeah. This is the pump, the one on top. This bottom pump was replaced. The timing was horrendous. This pump started to fail. I noticed it around midnight on the night before I was heading away on a trip, and I had to leave at 6:30 in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning, having drained the tank and tried to reprime the pump, it was a no-go. We still had no water, and I pretty much had to just hit the road and leave it, which meant we had to get a plumber in. And the only thing they could do, I couldn't rebuild the pump because I wasn't there. I was away for a week. All they could do was replace it. So we got a new pump. The old pump's sitting there, and it's on my list of things to rebuild at some point because it probably just needs a rebuild in the pump side of it. So this is a reasonably new pump, but it's not going to remain new if we just keep letting it cycle like that. The idea is that the pump takes the water from our water tank, which is low pressure. It feeds it into this tank, which is basically just a big air tank. The air compresses, and that's our pressure vessel basically to provide high pressure water. Next job is basically going to be to shut the water off into the pump and shut the water off from the tank, and then we'll drain this out. I'm going to have to move everything. So the other thing we'll do, take the pressure gauge out, which allows air into the tank, and that helps it drain faster. Right, that's the high pressure line switched off on the output, and pump switched off. That should be the input switched off. Alright, hopefully you're going to be able to see this. I've put a couple of little magnetic work lights in there. Not that there's a whole lot to see, to be fair. It's pretty much a undo the bung and watch all the water come out. And I'm going to get very wet if I stay here. And you're going to get very wet too, because it is under pressure. Ah! Rescue the camera! Oh dear. Alright, you can watch from back here. You probably still get wet, but maybe not as wet as I just got. And of course it's rusty water because it's in the bottom of a metal tank. And there's dots on the lens, but hopefully it's zoomed quite in, so it won't be too bad. And that was it, and the pressure's drained completely from the tank. It's at 0 pound, so that tells me that this tank is full of water. It's alright, so you can hear the gurgling. That's simply because it's trying to drain out through a small orifice with no air coming in, so that's why we take the pressure tank out. So I'm simply going to crack this loose. Hey bud! And once I crack this loose, it should start coming out. with much more gusto. Alright, so you keep an eye down there. I feel like that might be blocked. That should be coming out much faster than that. Alright, we may have a wee bit of rusted stuff in the bottom of the tank bunging up that drain. So big chunks of rust coming out there. That shouldn't be in there. Alright. That's not ideal. I think what I'll do is try taking the bleed screw out the top of the pump, simply to let a little bit more air in. So that it's an air in problem rather than a water out problem. It's an air in problem. Right, so I'll take this pressure line off, let more air in, actually let more water out and speed the process up. We may get water out of here as well. No, the air flowing in is, you can hear that, the end of the pond here. Alright, it's going to turn into a swamp here. Just because of this. So we're now draining it just a rack.
One eternity later.
Okay, let's start reassembling things. The reason it's just only ever had tape put on it is because of what I'm encountering now. It's just too hard to find the end and get it off. It has amalgamated itself into one big blob. Does anyone know a way to find the end of this PTFE tape? Size spanner. Our basic engineering instructors will be having kittens by now. Although I don't suspect. They were pretty old when I went through, and that was, geez, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And they were pretty old then, so yeah. I'll tighten that a bit more once we get it in. Alright. Squelch, squelch. I hope my work boots are waterproof, otherwise I'm going to get wet socks. Don't know how much of this will be visible. It's pretty dark in here. I've got lights on it, but the lights are not the best. They're just the best I got. I'll try and brighten it up a bit. If you can't see, you can't see. Just know I'm screwing a thing in a hole. Alright, got it started. That's awkward and unpleasant as far as jobs go. There we go. That's as good as that's going to get. And the good news is my toes are dry. Okay, I'm just going to turn the line back on that feeds the house and the granny flat. Which is an awkward bugger to get at. Now I'm going to turn the tap on that I had on before, just running on quite a trickle, and we'll see if that's made a difference. That's going quite a flow now. It's starting to reduce the pressure, but you can tell what it was doing before. As soon as I turned the tap on, it was basically pump on off, on off, on off. Purging the line of a bit of air. Now it should, I think, when it drops just below 40, kick the pump back in. I'm pushing a lot of water out of here now. Alright, we're on full bore now just to speed things up. That's way more water than I had coming out of it before. And you can see what a huge difference that's made purging that tank. I'll let it come on and cycle back up to full pressure with that tap running, which should easily be capable of doing. Hey guys, well that's the job done. The pressure tank is making pressure again. We're pumping water again. Water's back on, so we're all good. Looks like it's sitting up around 53 psi when it's at full pressure, and then dropping down to about 32 and kicking back on. But as you heard at the start, that tick 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 back and forth, there was no pressure being made by this vessel at all. The tank is buggered. We're going to have to replace it at some time, but for now she's all good. I've been doing this pretty much once a year since we got here, and it solves the problem and it just kicks back in and starts working again. We are going to have to replace that pressure vessel, and at some point when we do that, I guess I'll turn the camera on and let you see how we do it. I have no idea how we'll do it yet, but we'll make it up as we go along, and I'm sure it'll work because it normally does. Okay, well, not my usual kind of video, but I thought you might be interested in watching, so I'll be back on the sleep out very shortly. I'm just starting to feel like maybe I've got a wee bit of energy to do that, so 3 months later we're coming right, I think. Maybe. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.